a pioneer. Today, we have a pioneer in environmental art who lives in a farmhouse near where Patricia lived and was probably built by the same craftsman in the early 1800s. Patricia Johanson is world-renowned, so much so that French film producers were here recently to film some of Utah's treasures, including the spiral jetty. But also, even though the design for the draw at Sugarhouse Park is not yet complete, Patricia is so famous that they filmed her and some of the aspects of the design that will be finished. Everywhere Patricia goes, there's huge interest in the draw at Sugarhouse. However, unlike the spiral jetty, Patricia's art has a real and important function. The seagull lily, our state flower, which the early pioneers ate the bulb of which to keep from starving. The seagull lily at the draw will be the first flood control system in the United States in the form of an environmental sculpture. Patricia's work is seen in more than 150 exhibitions worldwide. Her drawings and her models are in the permanent collections of some of the greatest museums in the world, including the Metropolitan Museum of Art and MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. I am delighted to introduce you to Patricia.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be back in Salt Lake City. And, it should be on. It's on? So I'm going to start right in. I'm going to show 3 projects. I'm showing 2 prior to Salt Lake, so that you can get an idea of what a build project looks like. In 1981, I was invited to design an environmental sculpture for Fair Park Lagoon in Dallas. It was apparent that the lagoon was environmentally degraded. The shoreline was eroded and the water was murky. Fertilizer from the lawn washed into the lagoon every time it rained, causing algal bloom. There were few birds, no waterfowl, and hardly any plants, animals, or fish. In fact, the Dallas Museum of Natural History had declared the site biologically dead. I began by developing my own list of concerns, which included creating functioning ecosystems and providing living exhibits for the Dallas Museum of Natural History. Lining the shoreline with cypress knees helped control bank erosion, and creating paths over water allowed people to become immersed in the life of the lagoon. I also began to research what different animals eat, because food plants and nesting materials attract wildlife. Eventually, 2 Texas plants were chosen as models for the sculptures, because their forms coincided with the strategy of the design. The Delta duck potato, Sagittaria platyphila, had a massive twisted roots that I arranged to prevent water from eroding the shoreline. And this drawing, called Shoreline Stabilization, shows how sculptural elements are used as lines of defense and deployed along the water's edge to prevent waves from reaching the shore, which had previously been eroding at the rate of 8 inches a year. And if you look at the strategy of the design, if you would pull all of those red segments, they would up into a single line. They would form a continuous line across the lagoon. So water can literally no longer reach the shoreline. And then the purple segment riprap that I put in large. Spaces between these sculptural elements became microhabitats for plants, fish, turtles, and birds. and are now used as an outdoor exhibit and teaching facility by the Dallas Museum of Natural History. The roots of the plant were built as 5-foot wide paths that people could walk on, while thinner stems rose above the water as perches for birds. Leaves further out in the lagoon became islands for animals, while others along the shore formed step seats and overlooks. And finally, children tend to use both sculptures as a playground that combines running and climbing with exploration and discovery. A second sculpture at the opposite end of the lagoon was based on a Texas fern, Pteris multifida. The spine and leaflets of the plant were twisted to create bridges, causeways, and islands, while cut-out shapes between the walkways became small-scale water landscapes, flower basins, and fish ponds. Now, 30 years later, pond cypress trees provide a shady canopy over the entire sculpture. Biological restoration was a key element in the design of Fair Park Lagoon. Snails, clams, freshwater sponges, and shrimp, fish, reptiles, and waterfowl are both decorative and members of the food chain. Landscaping was chosen for food and habitat value. A littoral zone of plants that root in shallow water was created around the edge of the lagoon to stabilize the banks, reduce turbidity, and provide nesting sites. The amount of nutrients available to algae was reduced and water quality improved. Flocks of wild birds began to arrive, and today the lagoon teems with life, including many rare nesting birds that have never been seen in this public park. Few would suspect that this is a functional flood basin with an educational agenda, as sculpture provides access to a functioning ecosystem that continuously evolves. Fair Park Lagoon was a very conscious effort to recreate a freshwater swamp in the middle of Dallas. Some of the most interesting and poetic aspects of the design are directly due to its function, such as when heavy rain drowns segments of the paths, necessitating alternate routes. Water fluctuations, which periodically flood and reveal the sculpture, create a transient world of reflected nature and are due to the fact that the lagoon is a flood basin for the Trinity River. Plants and animals, insects, fish, and amphibians living in ecological communities animate the landscape and provide magical sights and sounds, but are low maintenance due to the fact that they are all part of the food chain. And because the sculpture is based on actual plants, people who walk the paths follow the varying curves and rhythms of the biological forms, repeating the patterns of the living plant. Fair Park Lagoon provides a powerful connection to the living world while fulfilling all the functional requirements of an engineered municipal flood basin. As a designer, I've always been interested in combining large-scale infrastructure with community use, wildlife sustenance, art, and economic development. Ellis Creek Water Recycling Facility in Petaluma, California, combines oxidation ponds, treatment wetlands, and polishing ponds with a 272-acre tidal marsh and mudflat, and is known as Petaluma Wetlands Park. I worked on this project with Carollo engineers, initially as a member of the value engineering team. In Petaluma, art and infrastructure, ecological communities, and the public park are unified within the image of one of the area's smallest inhabitants, the salt marsh harvest mouse, with its tail linked to recycled water reservoirs, a butterfly pond within the mouse's body, which you can see on the right, and a morning glory flower that processes stormwater before it enters the Petaluma marsh. At the heart of the Wetlands Park, 4 elevated bermed ponds, totaling 45 acres, form the mouse's image. 12-foot wide truck access routes along the top of earthen berms simultaneously contain the pond water and provide more than 3 miles of public trails. And these trails frame the processing of sewage, the tidal cycle with its changing patterns of land and water, and the complex relationships between creek, marsh, tidal sloughs, and stormwater runoff. Habitat islands in each sewage treatment cell offer protected nesting and refuge for birds, and vegetation and substrate varies in each pond in order to attract a wide range of species. However, these wildlife islands are also a vital engineering component since they are deployed to direct the flow of water to the basins. Within each pond, zones of dense filtering vegetation aided by microbial decomposers that live on the plant's roots and stems filter, break down, and consume suspended solids and heavy metals. These green zones alternate with blue zones of deeper open water. And in these open water zones, sunlight encourages the growth of algae that produce oxygen. Wave action further aerates the water, and mosquito-eating fish are in turn preyed upon by fish-eating waterfowl. A grape arbor and pavilion in the mouse's right ear provides shady seating and concealed bird lines, while the left ear forms amphitheater seating for tour groups and local schools that use the facility as part of their environmental and science curriculums. I'm sorry, these are construction shots, but it's built now, but I haven't been back. So another component of this project that transforms through the seasons is morning glory pools. Set between a business park, the polishing wetlands, and the Petaluma Marsh, the flower processes stormwater from Lakeville Highway and parking lots through a series of bioswales, sediment ponds, and shallow vegetated pools. The petals are compartmentalized to create varying colors, textures, and habitats, with plantings targeted to the removal of specific pollutants. The morning glory was planted with 16,000 wetlands plants, and the patterns can be seen from the elevated polishing pond berms. The scalloped edge of the butterfly pond forms beaches and roosts for wildlife. A small shelter, the head of the butterfly, provides a gathering place for community groups, while two-point access paths, the antenna and abdomen of the butterfly, connect the polishing pond berm with the riparian corridor along Ellis Creek. A great effort has been made to attract wildlife to this facility by providing food, habitat, and nesting sites, and the wildlife has arrived, including 8 threatened and endangered species that have chosen to make this their home. This family of river otters attracts human visitors, while the red-tailed hawk, who hunts from the trees along Ellis Creek, has discovered a bountiful feast, including this endangered mouse. Otis pocket gopher is often seen burrowing along the trails, along with his nemesis, the 5-foot-long gopher snake. While birds are so diverse and numerous, the Audubon Society conducts tours of the site. By designing the landscape as self-sustaining ecological communities, the project has already stimulated measurable economic development. Tourists and locals walk the trails regularly. A new Sheraton Hotel has been built, overlooking the sewage treatment facility, and the Point Reyes Bird Observatory has relocated its headquarters to Petaluma. The project has also been designed to showcase California agriculture along the Mousetail Trail, which provides an intimate experience of local animals, migrating birds, and cultivated crops. Our facility has become a major site along the Pacific Flyway. However, this was not the primary reason for retaining farmland. Agriculture provides an additional layer of functionality and sustainability and is a natural partner for our recycled water. So the city is actually earning money from our recycled water, and they can't provide enough of it, so the plant is going to be expanded. Not surprisingly, the project has attracted a wide range of unexpected users, including recreational boaters who enter the wetlands at high tide, and many artists who can be found sketching in remote locations or setting up easels near the parking lot. Many people assume that my images are added at the end after all the basic engineering and environmental design has been completed, whereas actually they grow organically as solutions to design problems. In this case, the circulation of water, which primarily flows by gravity, and the sewage treatment train. I try to make all my designs simultaneously aesthetic, ecological, and functional, giving equal weight to engineering efficiency, community use, sculptural form, and sustaining the living world, which are all on the same footprint. I think it is important to remember that within the context of art, public park, and wildlife sanctuary, we are processing 16 million gallons of sewage a day. We are also producing pristine recycled water, which you can see in the deep reservoir at the end of the mouse's tail. And then there are other reservoirs as well, but they're covered to prevent evaporation. And you can see that that looks like swimming pool water. It's very pristine water. Biosolids generated from the process are used to enrich the land, and our recycled water irrigates agricultural crops, including these Sonoma vineyards seen across the highway, which I think gives new meaning to the idea of public art. So those are Kendall Jackson vineyards across the road that are being irrigated with our sewer water, our ex-sewer water. My original design for the Drawed Sugar House in Salt Lake City was first perceived as two enormous images, a flower and a snake. The sago lily is sacred to Mormons because its bulbous root prevented starvation during their earliest winters. And Snow Snake is based on a story told by Erastus Snow, one of the first pioneers to enter the valley. He describes crawling on his hands and knees through dense thickets and hearing the rattle of a snake which lay coiled up a little under his nose. "God," says Snow, "as he gave me the friendly warning, I thanked him and retreated." It has always seemed extraordinary to me that not only did Snow not kill the snake, he was willing to give it its place in the world. This project began for me in 2003 with the National Endowment for the Arts Design Competition, but it was initiated 13 years earlier when a group of children discovered a rubble-filled ravine with Parley's Creek flowing at the bottom and began devoting themselves to restoring and protecting Hidden Hollow as a natural area. Although the group's founding children are now grown, successive waves of Cope kids organized to protect our environment, have lobbied tirelessly through the years on behalf of nature, sustainability, and the Drawed Sugar House. The initial impetus for the NEA competition was a dangerous highway crossing that separated three residential neighborhoods, a public park, which is Sugarhouse Park, and a commercial strip with fast food restaurants and big box developments. And what was specifically requested was a pedestrian crossing, avoiding the 7 lanes of traffic on 1300 East. However, it was also obvious that the biological corridor had been disrupted when Parley's Creek was put into a culvert under the highway. Surrounded by parking lots, the shady, sunken riparian corridor of Hidden Hollow, framed by willows and cottonwoods, is a remnant of the original ravines that carried water off the Wasatch Mountains. On the opposite side of 13th East is Sugarhouse Park, while 2 blocks south, I-80 entrance and exit ramps ensure a steady stream of high-speed traffic. Thus, the Pratt Coalition has been working for many years to provide safe passage across the highway barrier and link Sugarhouse Park with Hidden Hollow. As a basic infrastructure project, the design needed to provide a pedestrian crossing under the 7-lane highway with an easement between office buildings, linking park and nature corridor. A high berm would have been required to keep rainwater out of the tunnel, but it soon became apparent that instead of blocking the flow of water, the art project could provide a controlled path for severe floods. And this is the lift gate. This became a particularly attractive option after a rain-on-snow event overtopped the Sugarhouse Park detention basin and spilled out onto the highway, causing property-damaging floods. Thus, the sago lily was re-engineered to become a dam with 30-foot-high walls that is listed on the Utah Registry of Dams. The north petal tips over to become an overlook that's at the top. The south petal forms a bus shelter, and a parapet along the highway offers a view of the plaza and entrance to the pedestrian crossing below. During major flooding events, stormwater breaches the dam via the confluence of stem and leaf paths, flows down a scour-resistant trail through Sago Lily Plaza, then under the highway and down an armored canyon, the floodwalls and spillway of the dam, rejoining Parley's Creek in Hidden Hollow. And if you go out to Hidden Hollow, you can see all the riprap that's been dumped there. That's the engineered spillway that will take water back into Parley's Creek. The art forms that frame Parley's Trail on the west have been inspired by one of the most famous landscapes in American history, Echo Canyon, a natural conduit through the mountains, used for thousands of years by wildlife and Native Americans migrating between the Rockies and the Great Basin. Rediscovered by the mountain men, this 24-mile passage became a thoroughfare for Mormon wagons, 49ers, handcart pioneers, the Pony Express, Overland Stage, and Transcontinental Telegraph. Today, much altered by development, Echo Canyon is still occupied by the Union Pacific Railroad and I-80. However, most of the places mentioned in pioneer journals can still be seen and are recreated in our miniaturized version. So what may be discovered as one moves through this narrow interior street is a series of sculptural landmarks that guided travelers along the Mormon Trail. Marking the transition between Hidden Hollow and Echo Canyon, Cache Cave at the right, where trappers hid supplies, was explored by the Vanguard Company in 1847 and successive waves of Mormon pioneers. The cave, also known as the Register of the Desert, because so many immigrants carved their names on its walls, housed martins and swallows and many insects. Like Echo Canyon, our retaining wall, which mimics conglomerate sandstone, varies in color and is filled with planting pockets and small trees. An array of niches and crevices, overhanging ledges, perches and nesting shells for birds are woven into the canyon wall. Toward the center, a place mentioned by many Mormon journalists is recreated. In 1851, Harriet Buckingham describes a wall perforated with holes in which birds have built their nests, and whose chirping we could distinctly hear, and whose chirping one can still distinctly hear in Echo Canyon more than 150 years later. So in addition to carrying Parley's Trail and the floodway, our narrow sunken passageway is designed to attract wildlife. I've always thought of this urban canyon as extending the living landscape of Hidden Hollow. And our contractor, Boulderscape, is experienced in building sculptural and naturalistic infrastructure. For both humans and animals, water is the key to life. And so a series of miniaturized springs, coated red, aqua, and black, lines the base of the canyon wall. Copperous springs, which tasted like copper and looked like blood. And these are all mentioned in the journals. Willow Springs with its clear, icy water. And Oil Spring, where Mormons grease their gun stocks and wagon axles, are all real places along the Mormon Trail, recreated as habitat and art. If the heart of this project is infrastructure, highway improvements, and flood control, its soul is the living landscape, chirping insects, butterflies, and birds, all attracted by the sound of dripping water. Near the top of the canyon wall, Snow Snake appears with its tail wedged between rocky strata, and the 40-foot-high witches at the left mark the entrance to the under-highway crossing. Perhaps the most famous site in Echo Canyon, this group of erosional monuments mark the transition between Echo Canyon and the Weaver River crossing, and were named by the earliest pioneers who perceived their tops as witches' bonnets. Incessantly sketched, photographed, commented upon, and reproduced, as in these 19th century images by artists Frederick Hawkins Piercy and Thomas Moran, they will be visible along 1300 East, a landmark that announces the location of Hidden Hollow. The witches also provide housing and night roosts for bats, as seen in this cutaway sketch of a capstone. From their earliest arrival in the valley, pioneers were sent in all directions to locate coal deposits, which were soon being hauled down Parley's Canyon into the Sugarhouse. In my original design, this cut through the earth, created for the under-highway crossing, revealed an aesthetic view of coal seams, tree roots, fossil imprints, and dinosaur tracks, all part of Utah geology. And the roadbed was replaced by twin slab bridges, opening up the tunnel to vegetation, light, and air. Emerging into the daylight of Sugarhouse Park, the tunnel entrance frames the water channels of the East Lily Petal planted with rhubarb, representing the agricultural crops planted by the pioneers on their first day in the valley. These channels can also be seen as the veins of the lily, the irrigation ditches dug to water Mormon crops, or the 7 rivers flowing into the valley. And so you have a very useful water feature that is basically agricultural, but also something that references, again, the pioneer narrative. A parapet along 1300 East frames the tunnel entrance below and provides an aerial view of the Sago Lily, while viewed from the tip of the North Petal, more than 20 feet above the plaza. The berms of the dam stretch off into the distance like miniature mountain ranges. They frame the bowl of the lily, which like nested dolls forms a microcosm of both the Salt Lake Valley and the much larger Great Basin. This is the view seen in 1847 by Erastus Snow and Orson Pratt. Seeking a wagon route through the maze of mountains, they climbed to the top of Donner Hill and discovered the whole valley shimmering in summer heat. The Wasatch and Ochre Mountains ran southward in abrupt parallel walls, meeting visually like our spillway at a low notch on the horizon. And so the art unfolds like a contemporary journey in miniature as we retrace the pioneer steps through a sculptural landscape. At the center of the lily sparkles a miniature Great Salt Lake, and the Sago Lily Bowl, facing the mighty Wasatch Front, overlooks Parley's Creek as it snakes its way back through Sugarhouse Park to its source in the mountains, framed by the snowy peaks and wild canyons that became the gateway to the Salt Lake Valley. If anybody has any questions and we have time. Yeah.
I often drive by there watching what you're doing. When is it going to be finished?
Well, actually, I don't know if ever. It's been 11 years now, and we thought we had all the money for the canyon, and apparently there's been some little glitch about that. And I think I'm trying to remember how much money is needed for the Sago Lily. I think it was 1.5 million, and I know that there will be a fundraising effort for that. So the crossing will open in another week, and everybody will be thrilled, and I will be too, because this is a very functional, practical project. So what you will be getting on June 6th is you will be getting a safe pedestrian crossing under the highway, and you'll be getting basically the base. You'll be getting the berms for the dam. What you won't be getting is you won't be getting the wildlife, you won't be getting the tourism thing, you won't be getting the economic development thing, you won't be getting the pioneer narrative, which I find, when I came here, went to the Museum of Church History, I read all the journals. It's a very compelling story, and particularly for today. It's important, and I think most people don't know it. You almost have to read the journals to understand the courage, the environmental awareness, If you read Brigham Young's journal, for example, you know, he's very clear about not killing more wildlife than we can eat. You know, not decimating the water holes, not ruining, you know, the vegetation, because what was so well understood is that more and more people would need these resources. And so unlike everywhere else in the West, where people just came in and used everything up, that was not the case here. And so I think it's a very, very important story for so many reasons. You know, the kind of individual courage to actually make that trip. And you read, you know, you read people just talking about it and discovering things as they went. And in a way, that's my vision for the project, that people will make that same discovery. Not everybody will go out to Echo Canyon and see the real places, but I think more people will when they understand that kind of narrative and that journey, that pioneer journey, which is so important for today. The creek actually was dogleg. So basically, you will see pearlies. If you go into Sugarhouse Park, you will see the round ornamental pond. If you go there, when that pond has been emptied, you will see Parley's Creek cutting its way right through the middle of that ornamental pond. But then, of course, it becomes an ornamental sheet of water again. I guess, you know, once they fill it, you will see the you will be able to hear, if you just walk around the perimeter, you'll be able to hear the roar of Parley's Creek going under the roadway in Sugarhouse Park. And then it comes out, and right where the bulb of the lily is, there is a lift gate. And basically, that's manually controlled. During floods, they can raise it because the park is already a detention basin. But what's happened is the path of Parley's Creek has been disrupted. The original path of Parley's Creek would be where the canyon is. And so basically, this project puts Parley's path, in a way, in floods, back on its original footprint. But I believe it will always dogleg, and then it reappears again in Hidden Hollow.
Oh, it's buried.
It is buried on 1300 East, yes. You'll see it going under 1300 East. It's very easy to see. Just look for the riparian corridor. It's just a line of trees. And then one of the things, the importance of the overlook and the bulb, is when you stand there, you will be seeing, because the first party that came down were just a few people, and they came down along what was then called Brown's Creek. It wasn't called Parley's Creek. It's called Brown's Creek. And if you just follow that riparian corridor back, you will see where that first party ended.